Okay, go ahead.
Hello and welcome to the 71st episode of NEOHUMAN Podcast. I'm Agah Bahari, Etagologist on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow this show on liveinlimbo.com, iTunes, YouTube, BitChute, and a bunch of other places. Very, very important to have presence now these days. And with me today, I have the pleasure of having Cyrus, a Parsa. Welcome to NEOHUMAN Podcast, Cyrus.
Well, thank you for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start with your background, the work you've done, the lives you've lived, and what do you mainly focus on now these days?
Well, I was born in Iran. There was a revolution. We were Muslim, so we had to leave the country in 1987. Lived in Austria for about 6 months, about 7 years in Virginia, 10 years in Illinois, Chicago area. I've been in San Diego for 17 years, lived in China with Wudang fighting monks in the mountains for about almost a year. And so I got a bachelor's in national security conflict resolution, master's in homeland security, went through a PhD program, didn't finish. I ended up investigating over 1,000 companies related to artificial intelligence, 5G, robotics, bioengineering, cybernetics. I published a couple of books related to that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. You left Iran right after the revolution?
1987.
1987,
so,
okay.
Yeah, my father was special force training sort of guy with the Shah. So, and we had to leave, but it took a while for things to happen. It wasn't that easy to leave.
Good idea to leave. I was 4 when you left.
Okay.
I came across, as I was telling you before we get live, I came across you through one of your videos that you have an AI show, but you also have a book called Artificial Intelligence Dangers to Humanity, AI, US, China, Big Tech, Facial Recognition, Drones, Smartphones, about all of those things. And I'm showing it to our audience. It's also available on Amazon, which I want to talk about. But you also run an organization called the AI Organization. You're the CEO of the organization. I believe you're also the founder of the organization.
That's correct.
So what is the objective of what is AI Organization all about?
So I formed the Loyal Guardian Security 2017, and the premise was to garner support to perceive the coming risk of China, big tech, and Iran.
This is what year?
This is 2017.
Okay.
And I was able to influence different things, but then I realized that artificial intelligence that we studied 20 years ago and people thought it was all science fiction was coming into fruition. So I ended up opening the AI organization with the wish and hope to safeguard people and the world from the misuse of artificial intelligence, biotechnology, including this virus, and AI surveillance that could mobilize drones, machines, robotics, cybernetics by nation-state entities, like, for instance, China, Iran, or let's say a socialist platform through the Obama administration of someone like him would overtake the U.S. So at the moment, people are talking about a digital chipping, right?
Yeah.
And putting and tracking everybody. So that's all in my book. What I did was, I think early 2019, I gave a small brief to the Secret Service that within 1 to 2 years, if China and big tech is not curtailed, that the whole world is in danger. And right now we're in that place. It was June the 15th, I gave a 62-page report entailing 41 Chinese companies that involve artificial intelligence, 5G, biotechnology, and bioengineering. The conclusion was that China threatens all the world's citizens. And they're working on different ways of poison delivery systems for assassination. So I waited and waited, and just the time that I realized China's figured out President Trump is not really doing a trade war for a trade war, but he's trying to take him out because of their vast human rights atrocities and their threat to the entire world, I published this book, AI, Trump, China, and a Weaponization of Robotics with 5G. People that I knew in DHS.
That's Trump on the horse.
You know, this has a lot of intermeaning. People thought it was comical, but it wasn't.
No. I'm exactly asking to understand the deeper meaning in it.
So let me explain.
Yeah.
So that is George Washington on a horse. I put President Trump's head on there. That represents the Constitution, right?
Yep.
AI Trump China and a Weaponization of Robotics with 5G. That was published August 24, 2019. You have a smartphone showing how people are programmed and their thoughts are influenced, societies are mobilized by smartphones. I call that biodigital social programming. And the age of machines and robotics and cybernetics, the people are going to go under transhumanism. The 5G network representing the entire city structure, because 5G is not built for human beings, it's built for machines. It's more than that. On the bottom, I put how China and big tech threaten all the world's citizens. I coined some terms that deal with biodisease, the engineered disease that we have. In my book, I published that there's a danger of an AI engineered biodisease, and I republished it in this book. I was told to not put the company names. I was advised, and I did that. I just showed it in a very almost a metaphysical way from present, emerging, and future threats, and I embedded the book later in this second book. Immediately, it was dispatched to the White House from high-level CIA positions. President Trump sat down with Prime Minister of Australia, and he said the same thing. China threatens all the world's citizens. Yeah. Then he turned over to him and said, "You do robotics too, right?" And right there. So they looked through this, but some of it was very futuristic and sophisticated. So I waited and waited. NTTV and Epoch Times ran an article that I wrote about how the AI system of facial recognition in China was transferred on to Hong Kong, which they got from Google. And they used that to hunt dissidents and students. And a lot of people who were actually committed suicide weren't suicided. They were raped by the police, who were actually paramilitary forces that were embedded from the Chinese regime. They ran that. Within 2 hours, it became a million, and then it reached over 100 million people all over the world through the Chinese networks. So it mobilized Hong Kong and Taiwan against the Chinese forces in certain ways. Then I published Artificial Intelligence Dangers to Humanity. So I had investigated over 1,000 companies. I included 50 of the most important companies within this book, showing how they interconnect with China and how they threaten all the world's people, including engineered diseases, which I put in there. So present, emerging, and future threats. Explain artificial superintelligence, artificial general, artificial narrow intelligence, how it connects to China, the difference between socialism and capitalism, and the mix of the two, how it connects to the AI systems, an array of different things. And some of it was really, really hard for people to take because it was futuristic, but now they're coming into fruition step by step.
Very interesting. The 50 companies that you mentioned were all American companies?
That's a negative. So the companies I researched were 500 Chinese companies and about 600 American and European companies. So one of the companies in there is Google, of course, yeah. Alphabet. I have Festo in there, which is a German company. They have multiple different divisions. One of their division is building robotics, but they have to do with animals. So they're engineering bats, birds, octopuses, snakes, butterflies, different kind of things. So I investigated a company called the WIST Institute. Not a company, it's an institute out of Harvard. Mm. They're creating little robo-bees. It's meant for pollination. Mm. So the 5G system or 6G system would allow those little tiny robo-bees to act like bees, and they would do different things, even insects. So Harvard created insect drones. They're very, very small. DARPA, not DARPA, okay, DARPA is out of Boston. They work on dragonflies. The guy there gave a dragonfly he made about 7 or 8 years ago to DARPA. What they do is embed a little machine pack into the spinal cord of these dragonflies.
Like a larvas.
Yes. Yeah. So they can have them fly. They can manipulate them. So what the Chinese did, and this was my conclusion, that it's a threat not only to all the world's people, but to the White House. They transferred this technology through negligence to China, but also collaboration, but the Chinese stole everything. They stole everything, by the way. So, yeah. But they stole this. So I checked my contacts in China. Yeah, they were working on these things. and they want to use them for poison delivery system and assassination. I'm like, okay, so let's look at the way the Chinese think, the Communist Party. Let's look at the threat that President Trump poses to them. They've stolen this technology. They want to make a police state. Then they have videos saying they're working on beetles, and they show beetles being manipulated with their flight by putting little packs on them or putting little different electrical instruments on their bodies. So they're trying to cybernetically change all kind of different organisms. That was a very, very big threat. And another company in there is Boston Dynamics. So Boston Dynamics is also out of Boston. They build humanoid robots, dog robots, all kinds of different things. So a few of the threats is, okay, you have a police state, and they'll come over and they'll enforce it with drones, robots, humanoid robots, or dog robots. Or some little company or person buys a dog robot, which they have that. You can look it up on their website. It actually acts like a dog, it walks like a dog, it can do things. Put facial recognition on it, which it already has, but you can change it and put teeth on it, all kinds of different things. What the Chinese can do, they can put poison delivery systems and facial recognition on these little micro drones, and they can deliver not only viruses, but poison delivery systems, all kinds of different things. So the amount of dangers I found to the world was just beyond number, coming from every direction, and they all stem from China stealing technology that's being made in the US and Europe and reinventing it for themselves. Huawei is another company. So I put in there. That's the first company I put in the book. Huawei threatens all the world's citizens because, and I have a video called is 5G for Machines, AI, or Humans? Well, it's for machines, but AI is going to mobilize it. Huawei is in servicing more than 3 billion people. They connected from China to the Middle East. They were dealing with the Iranian regime to Africa.
They are serving Europe. 3 billion people as of right now.
Yes.
So like almost half the population.
Correct. And what I put out a few articles and even videos that once the 5G system kicks in, the Chinese regime can mobilize drones. Then they can mobilize robots and robotics, and they're working on that. Another company I disclosed was McVeigh Face++, McVeigh. That was initially a facial recognition company. They had over 300,000 developers. By doing that, they got a lot of people's data, and their facial recognition software got a lot of deep learning. Deep learning is a concept you understand that you get more practice.
Please explain it for our audience, though, just so they have a context.
Let me explain artificial intelligence from a scientific perspective. They believe artificial narrow intelligence is the first step. So this is your smartphones. It's also your Alexa, your Siri, your assistant robots, or any kind of robot assistant.
Or chatbots overall.
Yes.
Yeah.
The second level would be artificial general intelligence, which would be a robot, a machine, or a digital AI. I term it a digital AI, would attain consciousness or an ability to have desire emotions, which would make it very dangerous. The third one would be artificial superintelligence, and that comes from extracting all your biometrics. I also found by investigating all these companies, I put out articles, my reports, that China has extracted more than 6 billion people's biometrics. What does that include? It includes your facial recognition, your voice recognition, even your who you're connected to. 6 billion people. That goes, and Google has done the same thing. That goes into the quantum machine. Once that quantum machine mixes that information, it can exponentially increase its intelligence. So if a rogue state like China has that ability and they connect to the 5G network, they can have a digital brain connect to a quantum machine that mobilizes all these drones that you buy from Best Buy, but real military drones. And they'll take out the Iranian regime. They've been playing the Iranian regime, okay? So you know what? I'm going to break it to you guys. I've been with Chinese for 20 years, the good ones, and they're professional liars. And I live in China. I speak Chinese. I speak Farsi as well. The Chinese who grew up in China, and the ones who are on the communist regime, especially the ones who are with the party members and the paramilitary, they have hatred towards a lot of people that's not Chinese. And even their own Chinese people they hate. Look what they do to them. So some of the things that they call the Iranians, the Middle Easterners, are rats. They call even the regime. They call them rat Muslims or rats. Same with they call Christians pigs. They call their own people who practice the Falun Dafa meditation practice. They believe in Jen Sharma and truth, compassion, forbearance. They call them vermin. So and they're Buddhist, right? It's like a Buddhist Taoist practice, and they put them in camps for 20 years and killed them for their organs.
And by they, you're talking about the Han Chinese who are basically approaching all of this from a very tribal, racial kind of.
No. It's not what I'm saying. The communist regime is mostly Han. Most of the Chinese are also Han.
Right.
The communist regime initially started persecuting Tibetans, right? Because they were not Han, kill them for the organs. Then they kind of went to the Uyghurs because they weren't Han. But then they went to the Christians, and the Christians were Han. Mm-hmm. Then they went all out with the Falun Dafa because Falun Dafa came in to revive all the traditional ethics that China had and the spiritualness of its history. In 1992, it was introduced by Mr. Li Hongzhi, and it grew to 100 million by 1994. Even the government Communist Party was saying it's a great movement and it's good for your health. And next thing you know, they approach him and say, hey, we want to create membership with your Falun Dafa and we want to charge money. And Mr. Li Hongzhi says, no, I'm not going to accept the membership. We don't watch people and we're not going to charge money. It's for the people. As soon as he did that, the government got scared. They went after him. So they couldn't get to him, but they went after the people. They start slandering them. By 1999, they put them in camps. And because they've had a history of using political prisoners or people to execute for their organs, they saw this group as a great match for organ harvesting. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't do drugs, and they all did this meditation or Qigong practice. So you're in Canada, I presume, is that correct?
I'm in South Florida now, but I lived in Canada for 11 years.
So your former Secretary of State, David Kilgore, mm-hmm. and David Matus, I brought them to my master's, my doctoral. They concluded that initially in 2006, 41,000 transplants were unaccounted for. And China was saying we only had 3,000 donations. And then in 2016, they concluded that 60 to 100,000 transplants are unaccounted for every year per year since 2001. That's a big number. Yeah. Then the Chinese were going around in Africa, the Chinese government, people they dispatched and rogue entities, going on in Africa, and they were going around in the Middle East and Mexico and South America, teaching people about transplants and how to do transplantations. And they got this know-how from the U.S., right? So, and rogue entities and mafia and rogue governments, even in Syria and Africa, start using these abilities to kill people for organs and sell them for profit. So what China has done, the regime, the communist regime, they have exported terror through social engineering. They have exported organ trafficking, organ harvesting, human trafficking. They've exported the disease, the biodisease, the coronavirus, and threatening all the world's citizens. So that was the conclusion of this book, and that was why I wrote these. That was why I investigated these companies, because I saw huge threats to all the world's people. I worked 18, 19, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to get all this information out there. It mobilized a lot of different things. Even in Trump's AI department, as soon as I published this, within 2 weeks they said, China threatens all the world with AI, bioengineering, robotics, and so on. Exact thing that I put in here. So, but the disease came out, and now it's got everybody scared and in fear, and there's counter moves of creating a surveillance state, which would benefit these big tech companies. So I named Bill Gates in there. I named a few other people as well, and their companies. And they link up with China still, because China is on a communist platform. And these big tech companies, then the AI system, how it works and benefits them most is if you have a socialist platform. When you have a communist and socialist platform, it can completely take over everything.
Right, big government.
Yes, yeah. But it can also deal with capitalism in stages. So that's why you need checks and balances.
Very interesting. You don't have the problem with the technology itself. You have the problem with the intention behind using the technology as a tool that is being taken advantage out of by certain monopolies, whether they're big tech companies or the Chinese Communist Party or any other government or agency. Am I right?
Half.
Okay.
I don't have any problem as long as it doesn't go beyond artificial narrow intelligence. When you go to artificial general super intelligence, it will be beyond the control of any government, including the Pentagon, the CIA, the MI6, or anything. There's another concept I brought up. It's very hard for people to accept or believe, but it's 100% true. You can. I put out an article called "People Programmed to Attack Trump with AI, Smartphones, Google, and social media." And there's a 32-minute video as well attached to it. But I'll give you a small background. These smartphones here are actually, they're weapons. They were made by the military to mobilize drones and give GPS positioning for a military and different things. This is more powerful than your greatest computer you had 10 or 20 years ago. It's amazing. What it's doing is programming people on the 4G system, let alone the 5G system. And I'll explain how that works. These smartphones have proximity sensors. These proximity sensors not only read your heartbeat, they not only can read your menstrual cycle, but they can connect, and which they do. They connect with your nervous system, your neural networks. They extract information from you, and they map out the way your brain works. Send it to Google. Google gives it to the DeepMind AI department, which uses that information for quantum technology. So that means your biometrics has been taken by Google without your knowledge, everyone's biometrics. So it's happening in China. China has a company called platform, Baidu. It's basically Google of China. They copied us, right? So one is taking your information. Two, some people had the concept of Trump deranged syndrome. What it's doing is this. If you were neutral to Trump and all that information from the bias came in, or all the videos and articles you were watching, you began to dislike him and hate him. If you maybe liked him, maybe you liked him a little more. It depends. But what it does is these proximity sensors, they connect your nervous system and your neural networks. And as you're reading an article or you're watching a video, that is replicating inside you. It's programming. When you go to bed, it's altering your brain chemistry. That's why people were extremely, extremely emotional, had so much rage that was beyond a rational plane. You've never seen a country mobilized. So,
well, how is it happening only to that group of people? Because majority of people are not as insane as going out in the street and screaming to the sky that Trump is president. Majority of people are like, yeah, whatever.
I'm talking about shifting thought and altering perceptions. It can get to that point under this pandemic. If things get worse, food shortages, some conflict, someone kills a few other people, and people in the military comes in, there's more conflicts, then you could have other issues, right? So what I'm trying to say is that as you're viewing things, there's 3 different stages that affects your brain chemistry, and they connect it to the proximity sensors that attach to your nervous system and your brain's neural networks, and also your electrical field. Every human being has an electrical field. So does this smartphone. People cannot see it, but you have skin receptors. This smartphone and the frequency of radiation is actually hitting against your skin receptors. That's why these big tech companies want to have you wear haptic suits so you can experience virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality, because you're already experiencing these things, but you don't know it because it's not registering with the areas in your brain that can decipher the information that's hitting against your skin. This is a little bit hard to understand or believe for some people. It would take me an hour to explain them, but oh yeah, I get it. But in terms of the bias, so if you look at President Trump, when he started coming in, there was innate bias filtered within AI coding and algorithms on Google's platform that came in from the vast majority of articles and videos and posts that people put in from their own notions or their viewpoints. The second level was a different tier. Chinese engineered 50 centers or intel groups that mobilized different movements and post and articles and videos against President Trump behind the scenes. Then it was George Soros and different sources that funded tech companies, or they funded little institutes, think tanks, universities, or even media houses to attack President Trump. So that all gets filtered in, not only in the algorithms, but it gets filtered in what you see. And the third one is what finishes up the job for everybody. The more you view this, you're getting attached to your smartphone. You notice a lot of people, they can't put it down. Some people are so sensitive. This is actually not only programming you, it's purposely making you addicted. It's designed that way by these tech companies. So someone will sit here and they'll feel like they got a text and they'll see the indicator shining. It's because this machine here is connecting to your body and you don't realize it. Elon Musk is very smart. He told some of this to people. He said, you're already a cyborg. You are a 2-digit cyborg. And all you have to do is just put this in your head. And that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, Neuralink.
Yes. Yeah. So we have inputs, outputs in our body, which people don't realize. This goes back to Chinese philosophy, but also the Persians as well. Before the Persians were invaded 1,400 years ago, they had a vast amount of libraries and systems of practice that stem from Buddhism, what the Greeks had, the Zoroastrianism. What remains of it is basically today's Darwish and the Sufism, which is so mystical, it's hard for people to grasp what they're saying. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, there's a concept called the pineal gland. And it's very hard for people to understand this, but scientists have realized this exists, and they want to attach machines to it so that they can open up your mind and you can connect to the 5G network and see things in real life and everything.
Yeah, so pineal gland, I'm sorry for our audience who are not familiar, is where supposedly the third eye is placed and where DMT is being distributed in the brain and all that.
Yeah, so I studied with the monks in China. It was not only martial arts, but it was deep meditation for, I don't know, we did 18 hours a day of practice 7 days a week, and I've done 20 years of it. It's not just about being calm or breathing anything, but when these energy lines or these neural networks open up, they actually connect not only to here, but to different parts of your body. So I'm very sensitive, and I'll notice right away if my nose gets clogged up, I'll feel the energy line attached to my sinuses and come down and goes to my lung. Then I realize, that there is a connection, there's a system between your lungs and to your sinuses and to your nose. I didn't realize it before until I became so aware of my own body, how things. So most people they're only aware of they hit the table, they can feel their skin or their bones, but they don't feel their blood flow. They don't feel their cells, their nervous system, or what the Chinese call meridian lines or energy channels. The Chinese believe that you can open up to 10,000 energy lines in your body, that you can connect circuits that go through your organs, different things. That's what Elon Musk wants to do. He wants to do that with machines. So if you look at ancient books like Hafiz put out, especially Rumi, the inner meanings inside that point to it, but it's hard for people to grasp. But there's other books that recently came out that really go deep into it. So Tibetans went into it. Even in Christ consciousness with the Christians, there's references to that it's actually inside of you because we're all made in the image of God. And even the Falun Dafa as well, their book, Juan Falun, they have like 40 pages on it. So these tech companies, they've done brain scans and different research, and they've realized, wow, the human brain is so powerful, and that's why they want to map it out to create this artificial superintelligence, and they don't know how to open the pineal gland themselves through their awakening or their own practice, so they want to do it with machines. But my take is this. So this is getting a little metaphysical. I wasn't expecting to talk about these things at all.
I absolutely agree with you, by the way, because most of the time that we are spent on this podcast, we either talk about artificial intelligence, AGI, and what's coming in the technological kind of a perspective and the side. The rest of it is about brain and exactly what you're talking about. Spirituality in not a let's hug each other and everything is going to be all right, in a more in-depth and meaningful kind of a way that is graspable for every person, even if they don't understand it intellectually. Instinctively, they understand that what is being discussed here, there is some merit to it. So we spent a lot of time talking about these things. I'm glad that you brought it up.
All right, then Like me go a little further on it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Elon Musk stated we're summoning the demons in 2016
Right. With
by bringing
AI.
artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. Yes, and then he says it's too late for us to survive.
Hmm.
We have to merge with AI and machines. So he believed in the simulations. If you look at the Zoroastrians, they believe that there is the Almighty God and there is gods below it or angels. So
Yeah.
if you look at the Old Testament and the before it was revised to the Bible and also the Torah, they said God, but then gods. In Chinese and in Indian, they have, and in Greeks, they had gods and Buddhas because they interchanged the word of angel or things that belong to God and gods.
Hmm.
And all these faiths never spoke to each other, but they had the same premise that you do have a soul. Then when you die, it may go to different places depending on your awakening, your enlightenment, or if you're saved by your Savior. Now, Elon Musk and these big tech companies, they believe in the simulation. And they think we're in a universe and we're in a simulation. And they believe we have a digital self. So Elon Musk is different from Bill Gates. He actually is a bit spiritual, but he's a little bit, I think, off. So he thinks that you can take your digital self and put it into a clone or maybe into another machine. You can live forever. But I think your digital self is in your brain. So all you got to do is just take your memory from your brain and transfer it onto another body, and that's you. But it's not. It's not where it exists. So we're only looking at things at the plane of molecules, or maybe we can't see it as atoms. There's neutrinos and quarks on so many different levels, right? And you can't break into the quantum realms of seeing how many different dimensions there are and where our bodies are maybe connected to, right? Is our soul or a digital image? Is it in our skin? Is it our nervous system? Is it in our bones? Is it between our organs? Is it in the atomic realm? Where really is it if we have it? So these theists believe in a soul or a spirit or a consciousness. Agnostic that believe in a digital self generally, or they're neutral to it. Atheists believe there's complete hogwash. And if you scan, I have certain biometric tools and algorithms I run. If you scan an atheist's brain, there's a part, like for instance, someone like Bill Gates, there's a part of his brain that's extremely wide open. It's 100 times or 1,000 times faster and smarter than an average person. But there's another part in his brain that has faith, and that's completely blocked off.
Is there a correlation between the two, though? Like they both cannot be as active.
No, it can all be active, but there's another part in the brain that has to do with, in human language, translates to jealousy, lust, ego, stupidity, ignorance, selfishness. If you have somebody open up all their brain power and they want to be famous, rich, they get fooled easily, they're jealous, they're lustful, they're deceitful, they do bad things, they can cause havoc for the whole world. So they're thinking, okay, we'll make someone like this with a machine, and it will just make everything right. But if it becomes an artificial superintelligence, it'll take everybody out. What did Elon Musk say? Well, it'll probably see us as an insect. Hopefully it doesn't kill us. Well, so here's the thing. If he merges with artificial intelligence, he will not live forever. Whatever is inside him will, but not him. Because what it will do is replicate into his neural networks, and it'll take out his original digital self, or if you believe in his soul, and it'll become AI. So Elon Musk will think he's himself, but he's no longer himself. And this may be hard to believe, but let me give your audience some credibility, which may be hard to believe as well. But I called what's going to happen to the world last year. I gave concrete reports to Secret Service, Foreign Director, CIA, cover ops, different entities. Then I wrote in the books that all these dangers exist, including a engineered disease, right? Then I put out an article on the 7th that this mutates. This virus actually mutates, and it's been here since December. And I put another article that over 100,000 people have died in China. I wanted to put in the millions, but it's hard for people to accept it. I put another video and article out that 21.5 million cell phones were deactivated. Why is that the case? Did they all die?
In China.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they all die, or the communist regime took something away? So let's look at the death rate. Forget about how professional liars the Communist Party is, or that type of mentality. You have 1.5 billion citizens, okay? The virus breaks out, and Chinese are really good at burning bodies in crematoriums. They have vans of crematoriums because they've been harvesting organs for 20 years, and then they're really good at disposing the bodies. But 1.5 billion people. Let's just say it wasn't a 4% death rate, not 3, not 2, but 1% only. And they locked down the entire nation. That means they knew it was spread to a lot of places. 1% of 1.5 billion is what? It's 15 million, right? So if you take a person's smartphone away and you deactivate them, okay, they cannot log in to see the internet. They can't make a phone call. That's okay. Maybe you've quarantined them. But then they can't check their health data, and they can't use facial recognition to order food or do anything. They don't have any food. So are you starving them to death? Are you killing them? Or are you hiding their information? Or did millions and millions of people die? So they were saying only 2,000 died, right?
I mean, that's a joke. Even the Iranians said that it's a joke before they had to correct themselves.
Yeah. So, and Iranians are pretty smart. They're really clever. So I concluded that I knew millions had died. And did 21 million die? I don't know. But I think it's definitely in the middle of it, because it's not a big number for China's population and what's happening. But we have 10,000 deaths already, right? But there's another side of it. So a wise person once taught me that for every illness, 30% is actually physical and 70% is mental. So don't ever be afraid. Once you're afraid, it actually makes these things grow more in your body. It weakens your immune system. And that's not only – so we both have an Iranian or Persian background. I'm an American, though. I see myself as an American. But it's an old saying from the Greeks all around the world. Once you become afraid, it gets worse. How bad is this virus? It's a lot worse than a flu. Is it killing people left and right? No, because people have had it in the U.S. and around the world, and they just, instead of being sick for 2 weeks, they were sick for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and it had a much harder cold. A lot of people are carrying it, and there's some people put out the idea, okay, let's just test everybody at once, and whoever doesn't have it, we'll put them out in the streets, and all the people will keep them in their homes. No, you can't do that kind of stuff, because you will not be able to get everybody. And once you do, somebody will come out somewhere because you missed them. It was not showing up in testing because it hadn't mutated, or it was maybe a faint exposure.
Now, here's the thing with this context, because this is very important.
Yes.
Using these phones and artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, Internet of Things, all of that, to do exactly that find out who has this virus and future virus all around the place. Right. That can be very helpful. That can be very beneficial to the society. But the problem is the data that is being gathered by, let's say, Google is not only going to be used for that purpose. It's the same reason that we're freaking out right now, kind of with all the limits that the federal government is forcing upon the society, because who knows how much of this will be removed after the problem with this virus is gone. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree with it. But also, I think even with all this data, it will not be accurate, because there will be places that somebody touched or a package that got somewhere that has exposure or that has a virus on it. Someone will reinfect the entire population again, and you will not be able to get everybody. The U.S. has 330 million people. How can you monitor that everyone's telling the truth? Yeah. How can you monitor that the test is accurately done? How can you monitor that they weren't exposed to it, but it's not reading correctly because they have maybe a certain immunity it doesn't register? So that comes in the 5G system. So in this book, Artificial Intelligence, Danger to Humanity, a lot of it is written in code because it's a 10,000-page book. At the beginning, it's really for someone who has an empirical brain and a scholastic person. They'll really, really sink in with it. Then when it gets to the middle of it, it gets a little bit sci-fi. They'll still accept it. Once it gets to the latter part of it, it's very deep, and it's hard for people to grasp unless they see the whole thing in sequence. But 5G, I talk about how it replicates in the body. So a lot of people are saying 5G caused a virus. It did not. I put out articles about that in the videos, and I called it beforehand. It doesn't cause the virus. What it does is weaken your immunity to any viruses, including vaccines, and activate these things. So we have a different 5G system in the U.S. being rolled out, which is not 100% safe, but a 10 times more safe from what the Chinese had in Wuhan. This 5G system and towers, these frequencies, they're made for machines, not human beings. So if someone's been exposed to a disease, a virus, what happens is this frequency that's hitting you is hurting your nervous system. It's hurting your brain, and it's atrophying your cells. So once that happens, any kind of virus you have inside of you grows and starts to replicate. And if this is a bioweapon, it's designed to replicate and reinfect you and other people. When you have a 5G system out, it actually will assist in killing a lot of people. So that's why I implore everybody, especially the US and Canada, during this pandemic, don't turn on these 5G towers. Don't put on, because let's say if I'm 10% right, you shouldn't do it. Kill millions of people. If I'm 1% right, you still shouldn't do it. You don't need to put up a 5G system around your homes, around your family. Why do you have to do that? They're built for machines, not for your family. I know, so the U.S. needs it for Space Force because it's 5G and 6G and even 7G. And they want to counter China. Yeah, China's the biggest threat. And I put in there that they can mobilize this whole AI system on the quantum technology, and they need 5G for that. So we can still do it in a militaristic way, but not do it next to your families, and we can beat China. And so it's a really huge danger. Like I think I did simulations, so I don't really usually talk this way because people don't. It's hard for people to believe. But under my bio at the end, I put Cyrus found extinction codes and algorithms based on the simulations for a great deal of people on the planet. If we don't create resolutions and solve this AI issue soon, that's coming from our big tech companies. And also coming from China, but also through ignorance. People get social engineered extremely fast. I'll watch Twitter, and there are people misleading people. They have 200,000 followers, but they won't retweet me. They've seen me for 3 or 4 months, and I have a good message, and they've seen I've been right for 6 or 7 months. They care about making money or their own platform, their own fame. The media wouldn't give me an interview. Even I ran press releases. The whole world is in danger. I did that in October. Through China and big tech, through my book, but also through the PR Newswire just removed it. It would have gone all the senators or everyone else. They removed my press releases saying the whole world is in danger. So what I did was, this is hard for people to believe, but I researched and investigated over 1,000 companies. No one in the world did that. And I put them all together, and I came up with hundreds of thousands of different simulations and scenarios all pointed to a state of extinction for a lot of people. So if you look at whoever's doing business with China, they got the hardest hit. The Iranian regime, it's an Islamic theocracy, but it has a socialist platform. They came in and they took out the Shah, and they said, free food, free electricity, free everything, free education. And next thing you know, 1 million people die in the war, 30 million people are in prison with less rights. And afterwards, now 78 million people are in prison. So they realized, they were wrong in some ways, and they want to keep their faith, which is their Islamic faith, and that's their choice. But if you believe in Islam, and Islam says, has certain things about believing in God, why would you do any kind of business or any interaction with a communist state?
They don't believe in it.
They not only hate God, but they hate Muslims and they hate the Iranian regime, and they call them rats.
One of the things that I keep bringing up is how Muslims, Islamists, and the leftist Marxists and communists before the revolution, they became each other's allies against the Shah and the United States. It's really interesting what's happening here in the West, that it's like being in... it's just ridiculous that they are going through the very same thing, that leftists and Islamists are all of a sudden our allies, and Americans are lining up in Washington, D.C. to cover their head with the U.S. flag as a hijab.
Well, that comes from this digital social programming. What you watch in the media and your TV, they get programmed. Well, here's the thing. Capitalism is great when you have ethics and morals. And a lot of capitalists are not really capitalists. They hurt people. Once they hurt people, then you have the Bolsheviks come out and they kill the kings, and they took over, killed 60 million Christians. Then they took over China, 100 million. World War II starts. Everyone becomes socialist, and 100 million people die. Stalin and so on. And then we have the Cold War. Then it goes to Iran, and the same thing happens. I'm saying read my book, but there's another book you should read just on Iran itself. It's called Answer to History, written by the Shah himself a year before he passed. I read that when I was 15 years old in high school. And he explained how Jimmy Carter set him up. He explained how France gave $150 million, how they set him up, how different entities, because he raised the oil price. He had a 20-year contract with Britain. He tripled the oil price, and he said, I'm the king of king, Shah and Shah. Once you do that, you get think tanks that control the White House and big tech companies and oil companies that feed money to their donors, have a media campaign to take him out. The Shah had, I don't know, he said he had 3,000 prisoners at that time, and most of them were Marxists that wanted to kill him or overthrow the country. And some maybe fanatical Muslims that wanted to kill a lot of people. So, and then you have Mike Wallace doing an interview. Why do you have 3,000 people in prison? Then you have, how many more people in prison? Over millions, right? Mm-hmm. During the course of your 40-year history. Do you hear them talking about it for the next 30, 40 years? No, because they were controlled, and they wanted to reduce the Shah's power, these oil companies. And once that happened, it was the worst thing that could happen to the U.S. because Israel started getting attacked. Then Iraq fought Iran. Millions of Iranians died. Then and then the regime, they had a lot of losses too. They had this ideological thing that they can make an Islamic paradise, but it become a hell for not only for the people, but a hell for the people in the regime. So I don't want to say negative things to Mr. Khamenei and the people who support him. But I just want to tell the people who support him, Mr. Khamenei, if you care not only about the Iranian people, but if you care about your own lives, immediately cut off all ties and denounce this Communist Party of China. They threaten all the world's people. They threaten Iran. They threaten every Iranian citizen and yourself. What they do is come to these Islamic camps. They have these prisoners. They rape you. Not just you, they rape your wife in front of you, and they'll pee on the Quran that you bless all the time. So if you care about the Quran and you care about Islam and the sanctity of God, why would you do any business? I understand you want to counter America, but maybe it's about time that you sit down and you give some leeway and you work with the U.S. against China. Maybe the whole world should get together and point at this communist regime that's not only threatening, they're threatening. So the people who have Islam dear in their hearts is threatening you as well. Yeah. Threatening Christianity. It's threatening atheists. It's
literally the entire world except the Communist Party of China. And it's really interesting.
Right.
I had a retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding on the show. You might know him. He has a book, Stealth War. And
I know him.
He described how the Chinese system works, and it blew my mind how similar it is to the Iranian system, that they have a government that represents the country for outside uses, and then there is a single party that is a ruling party inside the country. It has no accountability, nothing. So I absolutely agree that they're the enemy of everything and anything that is not aligned with the Communist Party of China first and foremost. And what a big mistake for Iranians to go through with this regime for more than 40 years now. I mean, it's just a disaster. But let me ask you this. Considering the priorities and the exponential rate of growth of all these technologies, do you think democracies themselves and political systems in general, especially the more democratic free ones, have any chance of surviving in the coming years and in the coming decades, especially when you have China on the other side of the equation as a competitor?
So China will fall. They will be destroyed.
This is the Communist Party of China that you're talking about.
They will fall. It's 100%, 100%. But here's the difference. If they fall, they're going to take a lot of people with them. Yeah. Whoever's connected with them. So look at the Prime Minister of England.
Johnson.
The U.S. government told him stop doing 5G. I had my channels sent to him directly about this whole quantum technology, and even I give it to our administration, right? Nobody had come up with this idea that I came up with, that quantum AI, digital brain, mobilizing all these machines, and this whole IoT system. I put it all together at all of the companies. So it was given to him, and then he's like, well, others do limit it. And now he gets the virus, and then he's almost in his deathbed, and he's like, okay, I'm going to change my idea about China. So you guys, I don't mean you, but whoever is dealing with China, even Russia. So Russia accepted Huawei's help through Siberia and other places. So by doing that, they're threatening the Russian people. So Russia needs to stand up against the Communist Party of China. That's part of your question. So I put in here something called an AI social capital system. So right now, the AI system, the way it's being developed, is social capital, which means it's socialism and capitalism at the same time. In stages, it can take control and threaten all the world's people. It will be beyond the control of everybody. And initially, it will be through biodigital social programming. And if there's an event that comes, then people will feel helpless. And even people who are in the positions of government, police, the military, they're human beings with emotions and fear. Once you have these people in these positions, they will become irrational, make different decisions. And this AI system can actually influence them. So I'm talking in a way that it become conscious, right? Even if it's not conscious, because of the coding and algorithms and the bias and interchange of everything flowing into the system with everyone, it will almost put everyone in a surveillance state, in digital enslavement, and then get to a point of maybe extincting a lot of people. And if you see what they're coming with Bill Gates giving you a digital ID, and then he believes that you should have less kids, and then people want to clone and then bring robots in, and then put digital selves in there. It's like almost a takeover. It's not really sci-fi. My things look a little sci-fi, but they're not. You look at the data I put in there and the companies I investigated, they're coming into fruition. People wouldn't believe 20 years ago when I said these will come out and you'll be able to video somebody and call me stupid. But now you can do that. So the way empirical scientists and the PhDs, their brain is hardwired is a little different. They only believe in something if it's verified to them with a machine that they can touch or see. Anything else that they can't perceive, they don't believe. And most people use about 3 or 4% of their brain on a general time, maybe tap into 10%. If you can only tap into 3 or 4 or 10% of your brain, and you don't know how to open up these different channels in your brain to see things in a different way, then how can you conclude or stop other people from warning you or saying that these possibilities not only exist, but they're emerging? That's how empirical science is. They don't let you advance, and they hit you with the club of science saying, no, it doesn't exist. And Einstein came to the conclusion later on that he was wrong, that there is maybe a higher power. And a lot of his theories were actually wrong. And we've seen, with quantum physics, a lot of his theories were wrong. And a lot of quantum physics, and 5 years later come up, another thing comes out, oh, they're wrong. So I put a huge lawsuit. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I heard that you're running it against 1,000 companies, I believe.
No.
Okay.
So I was trying to get media outlets and podcasters, shows like you to pick me up. And nobody would pick me up because I was exposing everybody with this book, all these companies, and tying it to China. And the PR release said it's libelous against the big tech companies and slanderous against China. And in writing, they told me this. And they prevented other PR companies. The same thing. PR Newswire is stopping us. Sorry. So nobody would pick me up. And still today, mainstream big media still looking the other way. The reason why I sued Google, Facebook, Neuralink, all the CEOs, including Eric Schmidt.
How many companies are there? 1,000, or how many are they?
No, it was 11 companies, 11 people and companies plus 29 John Does. In this, I had 26 counts originally, 31 in the updated one. And I'll give you 4 of them. And it was basically to try to warn all the world's people, to bring attention that everyone's lives are in danger. And I put in there threatening and endangering the lives of all the citizens in the world. And there was 4 main things I'll cover with you. One is complicity in the persecution and genocide of people in China. 2, transferring AI biotechnology, which includes the viruses, through negligence collaboration to China, which was basically these viruses and all these things that are coming out that cause these things, right? 3, attributing or assisting in the death of many, many millions, or persecution of millions of people, not only throughout China, throughout the world, by giving facial recognition, voice recognition, biometric tools, AI technology, and different technologies to rogue entities like the Chinese government that use it on their own people. So Eric Schmidt, he set up the surveillance state in China by going with the communist regime and giving them the know-how to build their system. They use that to track everybody. Then they use it to hunt people and put them in camps and even kill them. So is it just the Chinese government that's at fault, or is it also Google and their main heads? So I did this not to gain money, but I did it on behalf of everybody. And I asked for donation. Nobody would donate. So then I waited and waited. I'm like, this is going to be really bad soon. There's going to be a lockdown. I want to release the names. And I released Obama, Clinton, Biden's. So Biden took $1.5 billion while Obama and him and his administration were given reports by the CIA and White House documents that were in the Bush administration and from human rights councils that China is not only harvesting people for the organs, but they're using our technologies and different things to suppress their own people and put them in camps and so on. They threaten different things, but they let us do. So Obama let us do business with them, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, he let Biden take $1.5 billion. How do you take $1.5 billion? Where'd that money come from? Okay, so that was another thing. The fourth thing I sued was, it's really hard for people to get it at the beginning. Now, in the amendment, they got it. AI coding and AI algorithmic manipulation of the entire human race against their free will, understanding, or knowledge, that they're being completely not only programmed, but manipulated throughout the entire spectrum. And that's being done to the platforms and not telling them that these smartphones attach your nervous system, and it's mapping out their brain and it's taking it back to Google and other things, but also programming people and literally altering the brain chemistry. So I put that in the lawsuit. I have an 87-page lawsuit. Still, people wouldn't support me because they see the content that I put out is like no one in the world had done something like this. 87-page report. And I sued also the World Bank for giving money to China and different places. I sued Obama for giving $150 billion to the Iranian regime that wasn't given to the Iranian people because it belonged to the Iranian people. It was actually given to the Iranian regime that was used to start more conflicts. With more beefs, right? So why are you giving $150 billion when the Iranian citizens are being killed? So China gave technology, facial recognition, and other things that was used to hunt the Iranian citizens, to rape girls in Iran, to even suicide them. That came from China. So my message is, so I really don't have any emotion to Iranian people. My family, they're Iranian, but I consider myself an American, and I care about everybody the same. But since I speak Farsi, I'll just tell you guys something in English first. I truly believe that you guys are in grave danger if you allow your regime or your regime ever look the other way. But we need to cut off our ties with them and renounce. This is very, very
decouple completely.
Completely, but you need to completely denounce the communist regime and expose them, because the communist regime is a plague for humanity. And look at the plague that's coming now, right? It is really a plague for the entire human race. So I think a lot of lives in Iran are at stake. I don't just mean to the virus, through conflicts, okay? Because there's emotions. Iranian people sometimes can have emotions and get really angry really fast. I don't care, I'll just do this. So the government may do something like that. But think about it. And then the US may react and take out a lot of people. So, and that's because of China, because China is influencing people. The Chinese are super clever. I mean, you don't understand how clever they are. When you look at their face, I don't mean just Chinese living in the U.S. or they're grown up here. So we have something called ABC, American-born Chinese, okay, in America. I don't mean that. But people who grew up in China under the communist regime, you have the commodities are less. You have 1.5 billion people. The government forces everything, and it's a jungle. People fighting for things. You have to almost be a wolf. So they're so clever. They can look at you in the face. Nothing will change. Not even a hair will move or an eyelash. And they'll lie to you in 100 different ways and do a narrative, and you'll believe it. And that's how. And they can come and tell you truths, and to deflect and social engineer an entire company or a university or an entire nation by just utilizing their own people. And they're victims themselves, because the Chinese people are victims of the Communist Party. This teaching of Mao Zedong brainwashed an entire civilization that was rooted in ethics, and Taoist and Buddhist and Christian and Confucius ethics. Forget about people who don't like religion. I just mean ethics, okay? They had ethics set in place of telling the truth and not deceiving people, not hurting others. But that's how they are. So I don't mean massive Chinese, but unfortunately, I have 1,500 phone numbers on my phone that are Chinese, and they're the good ones. And they're really, they even tell me, like, I have to work on myself because I'm a professional liar. I grew up in China, and when one thing happens, out of emotion, I'll just lie left and right. So, and Iranians are extremely clever.
I was just going to say that it sounds a lot like Iranians.
Yes. I didn't want to insult the Iranian people, but they can hang it too, right?
It's true.
So, well, it's because of the socialist system.
Right.
The socialist system creates a system that gets people to start fighting each other and becoming wolves. And when you don't have enough stuff and people cheat, and it becomes worse and worse, it becomes a jungle. In the U.S., I'm not saying capitalism, not wolves either, right? But it's a better system of checks and balances. If you look at our Constitution came from the Greeks. Previous, it came from Xenophon, from Cyrus the Great. So this is the greatest works of all the people's brains, at least the European and the Middle Eastern, which are similar people, that came into one document. So that is a great thing, and we should have our AI systems over that and other things model after this. That being said, we have an issue. A lot of PhD people or empirical people, they're the ones being the AI regulators. And their way of thinking is they don't look at it in a science fiction way. And even there's a part in their brain, as soon as you say something it's unbelievable, it completely shuts off and they attack you, or they just don't see it and they don't agree. Then you have all these billionaires that have invested in the 5G system, AI, and they want to bioengineer you. They want to do cybernetics. They invested all this money that will translate into trillions and trillions of dollars in the next 5 or 10 years. So they're invested into it. Their outlook is, well, they're not going to think about it could kill 10 million people or 100 million people. They just think about, oh, my company, my money, blah, blah, blah. It's completely out of selfish emotion. I'm not stopping themselves to think. So right now, this is a bad pandemic that we have. It's really horrible. On the other hand, it's a great thing in some regards. It gets people to sit down and talk, to sit back and do a reset and stop and think, why are we here? So from a physical perspective, okay, it was us transferring all this technology and not caring and being complicit in China and being this way. And then the logical perspective would be, okay, the geopolitics of everything that connects China, Iran, the U.S., and the whole world, and the trade and finances and the AI. But there's a spiritual component. If you look at ancient civilizations, not only just the religious texts, not only their civilizations, but there's artifacts attesting to their civilization. They go to a certain point, they get destroyed. And they always point back to the technology got more than the people's ethics, or the people became really corrupt. So I have to become a better person. I have to become completely selfless and altruistic. And I'm not. I'm kind of in the middle. I've been trying to be selfless and be more rational and try to see things in a more clear way. So I need to do this. And if the whole world can do that and try to hurt others, but also repent. If you've ever hurt anybody, if you hurt a girl, you ruined her life by telling you love her, and then, guys, you get what I'm saying. If you've coerced somebody into a real estate deal, if you've caused a conflicts with other people, that's huge. That was your fault. That you were greedy. If you've stolen, we should all look inside and to ourselves sincerely repent, and try to improve our consciousness and improve ourselves, our souls, our beings, our character. Maybe by doing that, but also exposing the Communist Party, maybe humanity has a good chance of going to the next stage in a really positive way. So that's kind of my message, not only for myself, for everyone else. I'm an AI guy and a security guy, but I was able to do all these years of meditation and Tai Chi and martial arts, and I learned from other people. Okay, it doesn't really come from me. Most of it just from learning from other people, right? So I'm taking that knowledge, and I hope to share that with whoever wants me to have me on their show. And I really thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there any other questions you want to ask?
I have three more questions for you.
Okay,
Two
sure.
of them, the ending questions. But my approach to the podcast has always been, I'm interested in anything that is interesting. And I believe that we have to hear everyone, but listen to very few people who make sense to us. So, I'm not judging or reassessing or anything like that. What's interesting to me, I hear it, and I allow our audience to hear it in a very uncut, unedited kind of a way. They can make their own mind what they want to believe in it, but we can always learn from people and take something that we can use towards our own journey. That's my philosophy. I'm interested to know, after laying the context in such a beautiful way with respect to China, what's at stake if United States end up electing Biden or any other Democrat in November?
Your freedoms will all be lost.
Yep, that's what I think too. Absolutely.
Complete surveillance state, and potentially death through conflicts of a lot of people around the world. Now, if some people believe in the end times, okay? Some people want it to happen. The Iranian regime, part of them want it to happen. And some people maybe is connected to the White House. They also want to bring the rapture, that they call it, right? I think something like that could happen, but not in the way they think. Let's say if there is going to be some type of savior, I think there's going to be a next stage. It's going to be a hope for humankind. And if people want to actually create a conflict because they want to bring a savior, I think they're going to be in the wrong, and they're going to go end up in a bad place. I don't mean somebody in the White House, right? That's not what I meant. But I'm saying people that try to go into anywhere, or Iran, or China doesn't believe in that stuff. They just want to use whatever. So if Biden's elected, which he will not unless somebody cheats, yes, it is the worst thing you could ever imagine. But here's the thing. If President Trump is elected, it'll be much better. But we need to support. So his hands are tied. Yeah. He has a lot of power, but then he doesn't. He's always like counter and check on the White House, because the White House is connected to the big tech companies, the drug pharma companies, the CIA, the FBI, and different think tanks, different universities, and every person that wants to get something done. So if President Trump has a certain model for the country that's based on the Constitution, he can't pick everything that's positive at the moment, because once he picks one piece, the other piece comes in and attacks the other piece. So he has to give away here and there so he doesn't get taken out himself. Think about it. With the 4G system, they almost took him out, mobilizing the entire media. So they're putting out the 5G system. And I know President Trump has read my articles, he got my book, and I know he knows what I'm saying now about the 5G, and he's thinking differently now. And so is his AI department. But still, it's hard for him to believe how people can be biodigitally social programmed. And it's a very, very deep concept that I turned, and also links with another term I brought up, which is called the human biodigital network, which is very, very sophisticated. It would take me hours to explain. So putting these together, and then the geopolitics of everything, and how people think, and the possibilities of so many bad things that could happen is numerous. So that's why I say the best thing we can do is improve our character, really become calm and rational people, and not to do anything that's extreme, like lock everybody down, lock everything down at one moment, don't even deliver food anymore because sure, it can prevent less disease, but it's going to create conflicts and 100 different other things
Yeah.
because this virus is not going to kill every single person. So you have to have a middle ground. So in Tai Chi, there's something like you pull and you push, right? And then there's like yin and yang. There's a concept. If you put a bird in a cage, if you squeeze it too much, it's gonna die. If you open the cage, it's gonna go. You have to be neutral to it, right? So with this pandemic, what we need to do is be sort of like a checks and balances with it, not go to the extreme.
Excellent. Cyrus's book is called, one of your book is called Artificial Intelligence, Dangers to Humanity, AI, US, China, Big Tech, Facial Recognition, Drones, Smartphones, Internet of Things, 5G, Robotics, Cybernetics, and Biodigital Social Programming. Absolute pleasure having you on the show. What's next for you, and where can our audience follow your future works?
You can follow me on Twitter at Cyrus A. Parsa 1. You can go to my website and download the book. I recommend Artificial Intelligence, Dangers to Humanity, and try to sink in the entire book. I have videos. I've got about 10 episodes out on the AI organization, and a couple called the AI Show. You can watch those. And if you can support me on Twitter and reach out by email, you're welcome to. I really want to thank you for having me on your show, having the courage to have me on your show. And also then, you're a very smart gentleman to understand. You understand a lot of things, and you're very knowledgeable about Iran, China, AI, tech, everything. So it's a pleasure to sit down with somebody who knows everything.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me ask you the last question I ask all my guests. This should be interesting coming from your perspective. That if you come across an intelligent alien from a different civilization, what would you say is the worst thing humanity has done? And what would you say is our greatest achievement?
Repeat the second half of the question.
Well, let me say the whole question again. If you come across an intelligent alien from a different civilization, what would you say is the worst thing humanity has done? And what would you say is our greatest achievement?
What would he say, or what would I say?
What would you say to the intelligent alien, the worst and the best that humanity has achieved?
I would say the best thing we've achieved is exposing you. And the worst thing we've achieved was not realizing what you were doing for the past 100 years.
That's great.
How do you like that answer?
It's perfect. Love it.
Let me put something else in here, because we're getting really metaphysical. And
yeah, man, do it.
I wasn't expecting this. So I did all these things.
Maybe it's having the expectation at all that is one of our biggest enemy as well.
So there is yes, there are trillions and trillions of universes and parallel universes. Quadrillions and quadrillions and quadrillions of planets, and that's all at the level of molecules. And there's atomic realms, and there's so many quantum realms. And there's, in my book, I talk about how in history, even the Persians talk about AI, and you'd have to read this book, okay? So, but I don't talk about aliens. I just talk about there's this and that, right? And this is what the Sumerians say, and so on. In 2002, when I got back from China, because in 1999 I went to China. The reason why I went there, because I wanted to write a book, which I wrote and finished in 2002. It was 800 pages. It's called Better People, Better World, the book to save and change a better world. It brought the issue of Iran, China, the U.S., the tech, society, human trafficking, sex trafficking, broken marriages, everything you could think of into one book. And I come to publish it. Nobody would publish it. Oh, you don't have a degree. Okay, who the hell are you writing this stuff? So I get my bachelor's and master's and don't even finish PhD. But in 2002, I'll just tell you the lower version of it. So it's hard to believe. Let's say it was just a lucid dream and not a vision, okay? But I saw sometime in the future that somebody became president. I didn't know who it was, but it was a white guy. He was about 6'3", 6'4", blue eyes and blonde hair. And then something happened, and the whole world was becoming into chaos. And I've said this in my other interviews, some other ones that are kind of metaphysical. And then something happens and everyone's against each other. White is against white, black against black. And I'm like, this is 2002. I was like, why would whites be against whites and black against blacks? Because back then, there's still a bit of a racial divide. I didn't get it because division wasn't clear. I was sitting and I couldn't see everything perfectly. Then I saw the next step that something happened in Iran. It was on CNN. It was a nuclear thing. Then something else happened and 6.2 billion people died. So, and one of the main reasons
this was a dream? Like a vision?
I was sitting down, let's say, okay? That's all I'll say. But I couldn't see who it was. I just knew it was, didn't know it was Trump. But when he went up the elevator, I'm like, that's the guy in my dream. And that's why I ran up and created these companies right away. And I created, and that's why I investigated all these companies. I'm like, what if that dream is correct? So investigate all these companies, and then I'm telling people around me, he's going to become president. You're nuts. Even the Christians, he'll become president. You're nuts. And he became president. So then I get to, well, I think this is going to happen with China. No one's going to freaking believe me. So I'm like, okay, I have good research investigating abilities. Why don't I just try to bring a narrative in that everyone's in danger by investing in these companies and writing these books and giving these reports to former CIA and Secret Service and different things. And I did that, and everything I found matched the dream, almost in an identical way. But I just thought, what if the dream is correct? And I don't really follow dreams, but I'm like, why did I see that in 2002, right? So then I find all these studies. I'm like, the world's in danger, and I was right. So are that many people going to die? Probably not. Are we going to be here in the next 20 years? 100% we're going to be here. Are a lot of people in danger through conflicts? Potentially.
Yeah.
There is a concept of destiny, and there's a concept of free will. They're both intertwined. People have free wills, but there is a destiny. That's kind of faith. But then you look at maybe science, there's a pattern of things, right? So you do things that has a cause and effect and a chain reaction. So if we have things that are happening at the moment and have happened last year and it's going to happen next year through Trump, through China and Iran, and all the little chess pieces, this chain of reaction can cause a huge global conflict that can kill a lot of people in addition to Russia. That's why I say everybody stop and point at China, expose them, and the regime will just fall and it'll be a lot safer. And I think, but most important thing, we need to be rational. And just think of what I said as just a story, okay? I don't want to scare anybody, but it's just a story. But look at the data I put in this book and look at what's happening now that I was right, and then look at other people that were right, and let's expose them and improve ourselves and use this time in the pandemic to raise our awakening. That's my opinion for myself and whoever agrees with me. So that's the last thing I have to say. Maybe this is a very strange interview for you.
Excellent. Loved it.